to get started, let's hop into it. Who the hell are you? Tell the people. You have taken the wrestling world by storm, if you will, and let everyone know who you are.
I don't know if I'd say I'd taken the wrestling world by storm by any means, but
we gotta set the bar high,
right? I mean, I'm just a dude who found out wrestling existed a year and a half ago, and now it consumes my entire being. Isn't that normal? You just kind of you just let it consume everything you do.
I love that for you so much.
What a great fucking time to get into it too. You could not have joined being a fan at a better time. It's on fire.
I've heard that so many times. That's the most like common response that I could think of when on my original like the video that I made of just getting into wrestling for the first time. Yeah. So many people like, this was the time. This was so perfect. If you would have gotten into it 10 years earlier, you would have not fallen in love with it the way you did. Like,
it's just because there's so many options. There's so much. The internet is just like a rabbit hole that you can go down, and there's so many options. There's so many people wrestling, and there's so many different ways you can find it in all different kinds of forms. I like your whole story specifically because one of my favorite things as a wrestling fan is like getting my friends who aren't into wrestling and just like, I think part of it is like an ego thing because it's like, haha, this is something very niche that like I know more than you and I'm going to tell you all about it. But like, it's very cool. I stumbled upon your video, and I think it's like the video on your page, the featured video, basically about like how you got into it. And it's very cool. But for those who are watching who don't know your story, let's hear a little bit about it.
The way it started was just just brute force advertising from Peacock and the WWE. I already had Peacock just through my internet provider. So shout out them. I still haven't had to pay for Peacock. So
hell yeah.
Loving all these PLEs.
Free
just get
PLEs.
to watch. And it was just pure coincidence that the weekend that WrestleMania 39 was happening, I was getting, it was like some emails and some other stuff saying like, check out WrestleMania 39. The tribal chief is gonna do something. Just a lot of like stuff stuff that was totally foreign to me. And so I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. Like I threw it up on, I was watching it with a few buddies in Discord, and my fiance was there as well. She had never watched like that before. And we just kind of watched it. And my first match was John Cena versus Austin Theory, which a lot of people are like, oh, that's an interesting first match. But the reality is, it was perfect. The reason it was perfect for me and what interests me with as it pertains to wrestling is it could not have been more perfect for me because John Cena calling his spots was fascinating to me. It didn't take me out of it at all because I was already becoming so curious about it that immediately getting a peek behind the curtain hooked me even more than if it wouldn't have been there or if he would have did it like silently. So it was just pure coincidence that he happens to be a dude who screams his next spot to the people in the rafters, and that was perfect for me. That made me realize, oh, this is happening in real time. Like, yeah, I'm sure they've got their spots. They probably have their checklist of stuff they're going to hit, but he's calling this as it's happening. Right. And that was enough to make, okay, let's keep watching. This is kind of cool. And since that day, we have not missed a single Raw, a single SmackDown, a single PLE, been to 2 SummerSlams, been to 3 house shows, 2 SmackDowns, 2 Raws, got another Raw in November, going to TNA. We are so locked into not just the WWE now. The first year or so was WWE. Now, especially with like the Patreon and everything like that, I have been exposed to so much more wrestling that exists and always looking for more to find.
Your Patreon is really cool because people like suggest matches to you, right? Like and then you watch back whatever match they say.
Saves me a ton of time watching stuff that's not very good or something for a long time. Like it's like I'm hitting all the hits from the years like past, so and I'm getting so much context. So like sometimes we'll do a theme. So if something big happens, or if there's a PLE like Money in the Bank or something is that week, then we'll try to watch a bunch of old ones. So I watched the first ever one, so I could see where it came from. I could see some cool cash-ins, and it's cool. The contextualization of the ones that we're watching compared to what I'm watching, current day, is helpful, and it's fun.
I was gonna ask, what was your perception of wrestling before all this?
I didn't have a perception until my teens. When I was a kid, I had no perception. Which is hilarious because I had a video game. I had WrestleMania 2000 for the N64. My parents didn't let me. It's not that they didn't let me watch wrestling. It was definitely more of a. It wasn't like forbidden, but it was like if it came on, they're like, no, just like switch it to put hockey on or football on or whatever.
Something else.
So it was like it was usually pushed to the side, but I had no curiosity of it. It's not like I didn't like it or didn't. I just didn't. But I had a buddy who brought over. He would keep bringing over this N64 game, and we play it for hours every time it came over, and it was just a fighting game to me. These weren't people. Like this was like you're playing Mortal Kombat. It was exactly the same. Yeah. I did not associate that this was like something replicating a show that was in real life.
Just like random video game characters, essentially.
Kind of. It's like I kind of knew that like the Undertaker was a guy, but I was a kid, so my brain is like I'm just playing these. These are just fighting games.
Yeah,
it's just a fighting character. And my buddy eventually was like, "It's like I only play this game when I come over to bring it to your house. I'll just leave it here." And I still have it. Like I stopped talking to him eventually, and I still have it somewhere buried somewhere. And as I got to my teen years, I mean, I'll admit it. I thought I was definitely. I didn't really form my own opinion. I'll admit that it was definitely. I didn't watch it, so I only knew what everybody around me was saying, and it was the fake fighting show. That's all. Like they pretend to fight, and it was like, oh, they're just faking it. But that was because I was still in a time where I didn't recognize that all the fans they knew that and they were in on that. So I'm still in the phase at that time of being like, oh, they're being fooled. Like it's fake. Like, how do you think this is real? Yeah. So I'm thinking all the fans are watching because they think it's real. I'm so much smarter than them. I could see that punches and landing.
Right.
And then my 20s, I had no opinion. I didn't think of it. Like it's crazy how much I see it now that I'm aware of it. And I see wrestling referenced or shown or something everywhere now that I'm exposed to it. But I feel like I didn't pick up on anything in my 20s of noticing wrestling or getting a chance to watch it. So whatever they're doing now, to where I think I would have been like 31 when it started, or when I watched that at WrestleMania 39. Whatever they're doing to push to a broader audience, it worked. Like
it worked,
They're still finally found me. They're still continuing. Like they're just like expanding to new markets. I mean, like you think about like Logan Paul and just like the audience of people that was brought in from that. You think about just like how international they are now, and like more people are just like catching wind of that.
They're going to Netflix too.
They're going to Netflix.
That's going to be sponsorship. Massive.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and it's just like it keeps going up. And like they've been doing the sponsorships for like a couple years now, but it seems like they're really just pushing this like globalization of everything. And it's just like falling into more people's hands as it kind of did for you.
Like now I'll go to the gas station, I'll go to like get an energy drink, and they have like the WWE C4s there, and I'm like like this was not a thing like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, like it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And now you sitting there, you got Cody Rhodes on a can, like you're like, oh, who's this guy? It's like it's super interesting how much they're pushing, and it is working. It's expanding more than ever, and it's reaching more people than ever. And even just like, I think the boom of like wrestling content creators, because there is a lot of them, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And like, that's partially how I got back into it after like my long break, was I was seeing like clips from like like Edge coming back. You know, Galir started his like virtual thing in 2K, and that's like the main reason. But you know, and then I started seeing like Wheezy Blonde and Santi and like all these other people starting to make content, and I was like, oh, this is fucking sick. Like maybe I'll get back into it. And then eventually I did, and now here we are. And it's like it's in such a crazy space that it wasn't before, and it's just exploded in like popularity again, and it's something we haven't seen in like a long time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, people, there's a lot of tribalism in wrestling, in the wrestling community, but like I feel like even if you hate WWE, if you're an AEW fan or TNA fan or whatever, you hate it, you've got to be thankful at this point that WWE is actually doing an insanely good job of just exposing so many people who weren't watching any of the shows to at least one of them. Because I mean, like, the way my brain works is like no one's truly like unique. There's no unique experience. So like if if this is happening to me and I've found the WWE and then I also expanded and fell in love with watching all these other ones, then there's like thousands of other people doing the same thing. There's thousands of other people that also just got into it because of WWE that maybe now they're watching AEW, which they would have potentially not heard of AEW anytime soon because it just doesn't have the same market. It doesn't have the same reach that WWE does. So I feel like even if you hate the company for whatever your reason might be, you got to at least be thankful for the exposure that pro wrestling is getting through them.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened with me. Like when I started watching again, I saw Edge came back at the Royal Rumble, and I was like, oh shit, because Edge is probably my favorite wrestler still to this day. So I saw that, and then I was like, oh, cool. And then I started watching like a little bit, like slowly inputting it back into my life. And then I started watching like hardcore again when Roman Reigns came back during COVID. So I started watching at the beginning of his reign again.
Which is crazy too, because like
what a time.
Well, yeah, what a time, but for some that was like a really insufferable period.
Yeah,
for WWE. Yeah. But for a lot of us too, like especially during the pandemic, it's kind of like all we had. Like you know, I've gone through peaks and valleys of like watching weekly television and not watching it. You know, now we do it every week because we do this podcast. But like back then, that's all I was watching, and so for some people like us, it was like getting us through that time, even if it wasn't like the best product.
And that's probably partially why I got back into it too. Was, you know, it was COVID. I was bored out of my mind, like nostalgia and all that. It makes you happy. So I was like, okay, let's get back into it. But so I got back into WWE, and he was trying to get me to watch AEW for like at least a year, and I was like, eventually we'll see. But I was watching WWE because that's who I knew. Like I knew some of the characters still, and I was like, okay, I can get behind like some of these people. And then the first one I watched was AEW All Out 2021, and my God, what a pay-per-view. That's the one.
That good?
That's when that was CM Punk's first match in AEW. That was right after he came back.
And stuff on that, yeah.
That was the Lucha Bros in the steel cage match with the Young Bucks. Like absolutely insane pay-per-view. And I was like,
and Adam Cole debuting there, which was crazy.
Yep.
I'm gonna join the Patreon, and I'm gonna specifically suggest
say that
the Young Bucks versus Lucha Bros in the steel cage, one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, there's a lot for everyone. I know you mentioned you're going to TNA. Is that Bound for Glory?
Yeah, it's coming to Detroit.
I'll
be going there.
How closely do you follow TNA? Like, what's your
zero? I believe in Joe Hendry. That's about it.
Right.
That's all I got. And also there was I forget her name. The woman that came. Is that the one? Yeah, the one who came over to NXT and she did a couple of matches. I've seen a few. I saw the match on NXT, but I have not watched any TNA, and I'm kind of planning on keeping it that way. I think it would actually be just really fun to like. We got like third row tickets. I'm just gonna go and
hell yeah.
I'm just gonna go sit close and just take
be
in
a
wrestling
bunch of fan and
well, it's gonna be like that's a good example of one of those shows that like I don't. Like I follow it loosely, but sometimes I will like be taken out of it and come back to it, and it'll still be great every time just because I don't know, they're just good at that. Bound for Glory is like their biggest pay-per-view of the year, so you're probably in for a hell of a treat.
Since you recently became a fan, like what, a year and a half ago at this point, or a little over?
Exactly, WrestleMania 39. Yep, that day.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like what you saw, hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, maybe leave a comment for us. We'd appreciate it very much.